If you're a rioter in Portland, it's gotta be a frustrating time. You were an original, but it's all these posers in Minneapolis and Seattle stealing all the headlines lately. But you, Portland, you were destroying businesses before it was cool. You were blocking traffic before it was cool. You were getting hit by cars before it was cool. You were unironically racist to minority cops before it was cool. Your mayor had his spine and testicles removed way before it was cool. Rumor has it he's a biological anomaly who never even had them at all.
I want to thank you for bringing national attention to this important issue.
Portland isn't getting the credit or recognition it deserves, but that's okay. Even the greatest talent is no substitute for hard work and perseverance. And now the Minneapolis target fire is extinguished. Now Chaz is done murdering black lives in the name of black lives. But Portland carries on because Portland never stops. There was violence and destruction in Portland last weekend, mostly because it was a weekend in Portland. But the outrage that caused this particular episode of chaos is sillier than any Babylon Bee headline could ever possibly satirize. Portland Antifa activists made a glaring discovery of hate at the federal courthouse downtown. In the window, a white power hand symbol was seen with a background of threes to signify the 3 Ks of the KKK, they claimed. It sounds ridiculous and made up, but the ADL link from the tweet does confirm that assessment, and of course, they know racism when they see it. But you can't blame a racist U.S. attorney for this one. Instead, you can blame the Portland Trailblazers NBA team. They might as well be the Portland White Hoods or the Portland Slave Lashers, because the poster is actually from the team showing known white supremacist all-star Damian Lillard, no, not celebrating a clutch three-pointer, but signaling his support for the oppression and extermination of his race. Or so the mob believes, but no matter how ridiculous that belief may be, the beliefs of the mob run this city. I used to laugh when they'd chant whose streets are streets, but not so much anymore. Now it's just an accurate statement, as the signage on the property clearly designates ownership and doesn't really seem to be disputed. That was the treatment the federal courthouse got for its supposed celebration of white supremacy, the same treatment any block of the city gets when the mob decides it's time to target it, enabled by a mayor who repeatedly orders his police department to stand down, who repeatedly restricts their ability to stop this sort of destruction, and who in this case asks kindly for federal agents who would defend this federal property to be just as castrated as his Portland PD in their response. And that strategy produces exactly what you'd expect it to produce. This weekend, fires were set in the streets, an old man was punched in the face after Antifa stole his bike, rioters hit cop face masks with paint so they couldn't see before slingshotting metal ball bearings at them. That elk statue was sent back to the kitchen to make sure it's cooked well done this time. And the only thing worse than a public bathroom is an Antifa ransacked public bathroom where all the toilets are destroyed. But don't worry, comrade. In this utopia, you just shit in the streets anyway. With nobody left to defend the citizens and the property of downtown Portland, that task is left up to the citizens and the property owners themselves. In this case, that courthouse is federal property, meaning federal agents will do that defending. The Portland mayor asked them to stand down, but didn't leave them much choice in the matter unless they want to go full Minneapolis Police Department and just abandon the property altogether. Antifa rioters tried to set the courthouse on fire, though it looks like those Boy Scout merit badges probably went unearned. And they staged physical attacks on those federal agents. They set up outside the courthouse and attacked agents with a hammer. The woman screams in the background as though these federal agents just attacked this Antifa guy. If you don't want to face this physical force, Lawrence O'Donnell has some great advice for you.
Stop the hammering. Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer?
Antifa rioters were literally begging the federal agents to come out and fight them.
Come out.
And so eventually they did. And that's what gave rise to the one incident of violence that mainstream media and politicians have any interest in discussing. A protester with a boombox or something similar was standing outside the courthouse, Federal agents tossed a gas canister to disperse the crowd, and the protester kicks it and tosses it back at the feds, and the feds shoot him with a non-lethal round in the face. Reportedly, that protester suffered a fractured skull and requires facial reconstruction surgery. And people on Twitter are debating the ethics of that shot. Fine, we can break it down and dissect if it was justified or not, but please, let's be complete in our analysis. Is the destruction of property justified? Is the attack on civilians justified? Is the attack on law enforcement justified? Because there are plenty of injustices to go around here, but no principles to excuse some, but not others. So before we break down the technicalities of this scene, we should be willing to acknowledge the obvious wrongs of the scenes prior. But we're not going to do that, of course. Instead, we're going to blame Trump for this particular scene with no mention of the chaos and destruction preceding. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden says Trump unilaterally dispatched federal law enforcement on a peaceful protester. Mayor Nutless says he's concerned that the feds escalated rather than de-escalated. A Portland City Councilwoman says Trump cares more about protecting monuments and buildings than he does people's lives and constitutional rights. Oregon Governor Kate Brown says Trump's troops are not the answer. Okay, fine. Well, how about you provide the troops that are the answer then? Because what happened was a last resort after you abdicated all the other options. But those troops aren't coming. That's the reality of downtown Portland now. You are on your own to defend yourself, whether you're a federal agent or a business owner or just a guy trying to go about his day. You will have to defend yourself, so you should probably be good at it. Now that I've buried the lead to the very end of this video, a guy in Portland demonstrated exactly that over the weekend. If nobody's coming for you, you better bring it yourself. Outside of the courthouse, an Antifa activist opened the door of a parked car, and it turns out he picked the wrong door to open, because behind door number 1 is a guy who knows how to defend himself really, really well.
Oh, hey,
Do you understand me? Well, get the fuck out. Do you understand me? Damn! I wasn't trying to do it. Damn! You ever open my vehicle again? What are you doing? Get the fuck out.
Notice how quickly it becomes, yes, sir, no, sir, I didn't mean any harm, sir, I'll be on my way. The man then returns to his car, and then the mob grasps at ways to make this an injustice against them.
that's on video.
And your video, buddy.
Yeah, you guys should probably be more worried about that video. It exposes your greatest weakness. One guy with the courage to challenge you.
He's got arrows in the back of his car. Hey, he's got a bag of bullets. He's got arrows in his car. Hey, we need a bunch of people down here now. Oh, an arrow! He's got arrows in his trunk slamming to the ground.
Yeah, we need a bunch of guys with weapons over here to confiscate this guy's weapons. I'm sorry, is archery illegal? Just be thankful he didn't go full Legolas on you. That was very kind of him.
Right next to the Justice Center, this is not a good area to go. Okay, let's take a picture of his license.
Well, my oh my, what newfound respect and admiration for the institutions of law and order. Now, if you could just stop destroying the institutions of law and order, perhaps we could reach some sort of agreement here. Unlikely, of course. So I'm much more inclined to put my faith in what just happened over what could happen. A dude was prepared and proficient in defending himself from a threat, and he handled his own business. There are injuries galore in Portland. There's property destruction galore in Portland. There's intimidation galore in Portland. But not this time, and not this guy. Neither he nor his car have a damn scratch on them. And the mob was reduced to calling in his license plate number to the very same authorities they're out in the street trying to abolish. That was the single greatest moment of justice I have seen in all the recent years of Portland chaos, which means, of course, that guy will be the one guy charged and prosecuted from last weekend. Watch it happen with lightning speed. They don't tolerate much at all in Portland, and they certainly don't tolerate justice. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.